All right. Let's get into this, gentlemen. This week, we're going to be continuing our conversation that we started last week, really diving a little bit deeper into the mindset and starting to talk about how we, take our winning mindset or winning mindset frame and build it into a sales process. Okay. So I hope that everyone was able to have a couple of takeaways from last week. Eric, maybe you can share a takeaway that you had in terms of creating a mindset around, selling.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we all need to do as a sales guy is being healthy, number
Mhm.
one, with yourself.
Absolutely.
So it's all start within you.
Hmm.
Little things that can help you to be healthy is your food, meditation, sport, exercise, going out, walking. All these things are essential for us. And yeah, that's my takeaway. So I want personally for me, setting up some goals every week. So at least, go to the gym 2 3 times,
Hmm.
drink 2 hour liter at least a day, get all my vitamins. Started a carnivore diet a couple months ago.
Hmm.
That was new. So always trying to find a way to get better and
Yep.
improving, as a human being. And when your vibration and your energy is higher, people can feel it,
Hmm.
and also you're gonna become, you're gonna become a magnet, right? You're
Right.
gonna attract, great people in your life, great customers, uh, like great relationship. So
Hmm.
always, put the good vibration up there, and that's a fact,
Right.
right?
So, I mean, in my opinion, all sales is leadership, right? So again, at the end of the day, if we want to be
Mhm.
a strong leader for our clients, and that's what we're going to get into today, we need to master ourselves, right? So there's body and there's mind.
Yeah.
If we want to be a high performance person, if you're not taking care of both your mind and body, all right, it will become very difficult for you at a certain stage to be a high performance person, and that's in sales. So there's a very, very obvious pattern amongst high performers. And a lot of people that are struggling, if we look at their personal lives, what we find is they're a mess, right? They're neglecting their health, they're neglecting
Mhm.
their mental stability, they're putting others in front of themselves. And that's just not the way to, lead a sale, lead a business, lead your life, right? So those are great takeaways. Todd,
Mhm.
what was a takeaway for you? Oh, is he still on? No, maybe not. Cool. All right. So
Oh,
Sorry,
he's there.
sorry. I'm
yeah,
here.
no
Sorry,
problem.
I'm just working and listening at the same time.
Yeah,
Pretty much the same takeaways. A lot of meditation, eating right, working out. Like I'm finding that out myself that the more I improve in my personal life, the better my business has got. I still have a long way to
absolutely.
go, but those are definitely some takeaways. Same deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a very obvious connection. Again, guys that are stuck in their businesses are usually stuck in their lives, right? They're not taking care of themselves personally and mentally. So great, great. I'm glad that message resonated with you guys. So let's get into today. All right. So we're gonna make it a little bit more
You ever heard of
practical.
a fucking turn signal?
No. Okay. So everyone see my screen here? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we're going to cover starting off with some sales myths. All right. We're going to talk about frames today. All right. How to hold a frame in a sales call or a sales presentation. All right. And the two emotions you must transfer to your prospect. All right. How to get into a flow state. Has anybody here on the call heard of flow state? I call it just being present as well. Like, I mean, in terms of finding your flow. Anybody that's
Yeah.
done a lot of high ticket sales and big time sales, you have to be in a particular state. And sometimes, again, I talk about ruts and stuff a lot. For those guys that have really gone on a tear with sales before, sometimes you can get so in the zone where you're just you're connecting and you're selling, like there's nothing that's not being sold, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of that can be again, when we hit a rut, we have to be able to bring ourselves back to that state to correct what we're doing, right? So just like we can be in a total flow state, selling everything, we can be the opposite, right? So we're going to get into a little bit of how we do that and how we reset ourselves so that we can get out of our ruts or get out of our way a lot of the times. Okay. So let's talk about a couple of common sales myths. You must be high energy and high pressure and extrovert. I see this a lot. What I think everyone needs to understand, and anyone that's hung out with me for a while knows that I say it all the time, we're in the post-trust era. Okay, nobody trusts anybody. Since about 2008 to now, it's the post-trust era. Okay, this is worse and cause a lot of sales resistance. So basically, the way that we buy has changed. Okay, because of the information and the influence of social media and all the stuff that we're bombarded with, you will find a lot of your customers are highly resistant to sales. Okay, salespeople have gotten a bad rap over the years. It's certainly not no longer the time of handshakes where, again, a lot of these transactions can be, or a lot of these sales processes can be very, very resistant to you, right? So we're going to talk about how to break that down. I'm not a extrovert, and I've had as high as 70% ticket sales, right? I've sold a couple $1 million in a year consistently over the last 23 years. All right, I'm not extrovert. I'm not even high energy. I'm definitely not high pressure. All right, but I do bring some certain things to the table in terms of confidence and frames and understanding how to actually move my client. Underneath it all is you got to have good intention for that person that you're doing business with. Really, where I think a lot of guys get off track is they feel like sales is manipulation. All right. I don't feel like sales is manipulation. And in fact, I see it as the opposite. If you really hold a high standard for yourself, you should never be willing to do something or sell something to your prospect that they don't need. All right. And again, that's your moral, that's your compass, and a lot of these things reflect into how you sell. Okay. Most of the best one-to-one closers I know are introverts, which this makes sense, right? So contrary to popular belief, the best salesperson that I ever encountered, all right, again in the high 70s, was actually an introvert. He didn't even like people. He told me all the time, all right? But this man could go out and convert. He was my mentor in sales. And he, again, consistently outsold the entire team. He just went in with the right intent, the right frames, the right understanding. All right. And when you start off with that, the right position, again, you're helping people. All right. And I think that we need to get back to that a lot with sales. All right. Oops. What am I doing here? Men are better salesmen than women. Who's heard this one or who's ever had that thought before?
Nope.
Okay. Let me tell you, statistically, in home sales, all right, so renovations and like anything design higher end, statistically, women outsell men consistently by about 13%. Okay, so and we're seeing more and more sales women. I had sales women that have done extremely well with our roofing company. Our presenters, our closers are actually, some of them are women that we use. So again, that's also a myth. Okay. Women who are able to step into their masculine while maintaining their feminine are devastating. Okay, so again, they've got an advantage over a male salesperson. They can also lower guards consistently better than most men. So especially think about who we sell to in home sales. 90% of the decisions in home sales are made by women. Okay, so when you have the ability to work both sides, it's an advantage. Right. So again, if you've heard that, it's a myth. Salesmen are born, not made. Yeah, no, that's not true. I wasn't a natural born salesman by any means. But I certainly have grown it and learned to be one that, again, can hold my own. All right. So salesmen are made as far as I'm concerned. Okay. What it really takes to get good. Again, we're going to get into this in a bit, but those are some of the common sales myths that we encounter. All right. Now let's talk about some frames. Has anybody heard the term frames before?
Yeah.
Anybody heard of holding a frame and I'm going to put it as simply as I can possibly put it. All right. When we go into a sales call, we have to imagine, all right, or we have to hold a certain standard for ourselves and a certain position in the conversation. Okay. So we're going to go through some common frames. And again, it's reminders. It's a way to get yourself into position to, help your customer. Okay. By holding a frame, you're gonna do a couple of things, and it's something that can be repeated. All right. So these are the most common frames that I find. And a frame is a point of perspective supported by your identity, beliefs, and values. Okay. So again, keep that in mind. We want to make sure that our frames match our identity, beliefs, and values. Okay. The moral authority frame. I love this one. Probably one of my most favorite ones to hold. All right. So holding a moral authority frame over your prospect means you have complete and total influence over them because they believe you have their best interest at heart. Okay. So think of police officers, stopping a bus. All right. Think of parents. Gaining moral authority gives you massive influence, especially post 08, when we're in the post-trust era. Nothing is more influential. And how do we establish this? Okay. So how do we gain moral authority? Number one, by using Socratic dialogue. Has anyone ever heard of that? Say that a couple times fast. We'll cover it again in 3 and 4, but active listening. All right. Asking skilled questions, using trust-based language. And we'll go into depth with that a little bit later. All right. What does it mean? What does this mean? So again, when we're talking about active listening, we went through this a little bit in our role plays. Many times, especially while you're in the early stages of a sales presentation or a conversation with your prospect, too many salespeople do too much talking. They're not asking questions and really understanding what the prospect pain is. Okay. They're taking surface level questions. And this happens especially in, I find when you're more on the tools and you're trying to talk technically to a prospect. Electricians, I'll call you guys out. You're very technical when you try to sell things. And a lot of the times we get caught up in selling benefits and features when we don't listen to what the customer's actual problem is. All right. Getting to that emotional reason for them calling you, the pain that they have, all right, is critical to moving anybody. All right. If we remain and we use again, we coach, all right, or we provide our technical knowledge, all right, that's going to get you to the logical side of our brain. All right. Decisions and when it comes to sales, don't get made in the logical side of our brains. Okay. They get made on the emotional side. All right. We make decisions to buy or not to buy emotionally, and we justify them with logic. Okay. Does that make sense? So when we're thinking about why we have to active listen, why we have to connect with our prospect is that, again, people want to be heard. All right. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, if you're not listening and you don't care what your customer actually is, you may as well not even pitch. Okay. If they don't feel like they're being heard, if they don't feel like you truly understand how to solve that specific problem for them, all right, you're first of all leaving yourself way short. All right. But you're doing a process of sales that is no longer effective. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is where we get into like ditching the pitch, right? We shouldn't go in and assume that every customer is the same and we're going to pitch our product because they want it, right? We're going to go in, we're going to listen, we're going to make sure that our offer actually matches their needs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Being a leader for the prospect. Again, this is where on the moral side, I would love for all of our members and everyone listening to this to really think about, all right, is how do we use our leadership and lead a prospect versus pushing a prospect or versus thinking we're going to persuade them or manipulate them, right? Let's think about leadership. All right. Sales is very easy when you can lead. Okay. So the 3 rules of leadership in sales, our only job is to lead the prospect to what's best for them. What's best for them is almost always out of their comfort zone. The prospect will fight like hell to stay in their comfort zone. You must take a stand for them. Okay. So think about, and again, apply it to, somebody, very concerned about a renovation project. All right. Think about all the fears and concerns involved with, making major changes to their home. All right. Our job is to lead that prospect by listening first, understanding what those concerns are. All right. And then adjusting ourselves and leading them to the solution to the problem, which in a lot of cases, again, is the decision they're going to make anyways. But we're talking about a highly uncomfortable process, right? Renovations, I would personally compare to having teeth pulled. I'd rather get my teeth pulled than do a renovation, right? So, belief in your prospect. Most people have 2 to 3 people in their lives who believe in them more than they do themselves. All right. So an example, maybe your wife, all right, maybe your children. Okay. We must do our best to step into that small circle of people and finding greatness within the prospect. If you look for it, you will find it. Okay. So again, an example of using this in a frame. All right. Somebody's having a very hard time making a decision on moving forward with a renovation project. All right. How can we use our leadership? All right. And allow them to believe that they're going to be absolutely fine. They're making great decisions. Right. These are, examples, probably a piss poor example, but I mean, again, think about that prospects, encouraging them to actually take that next step, right? Always assume that they're uncomfortable because it is, right? And again, this is where I mean about connecting with people on a human side first, making sure that you're understanding their personal problem, all right? And not pitching offers at them, all right? Okay, the prize frame. Eric, this is probably your style. All right. The price frame we hold, that means you have ruthless independence of the outcomes because you're the best in the world at what you do. They need your help, not the other way around. They're lucky if you make them an offer. And if they say no, it's their loss. Okay. I particularly, again, younger sales reps, I drill this with them in building their confidence. All right. But a lot of times what I see kind of the death of the salesman being is confidence, right? They lose a couple of jobs and then all of a sudden, you starting to see dips. But if they had held themselves in a frame, all right, in their sales calls as well, and really looked at the situation as them being the prize, and you're confident about your offers. All right. It's much easier to, move a prospect just through being in that price frame. Does anybody use this particular style? Does anyone have a good example of it? No? Okay. So I'll share an example then. So one of our sales reps is famously good at this, very confident dude. All right. And his common when we have sales calls, or you might have met him on the role plays. He actually goes into the sales call expecting the no. He looks forward to the no. To him, that just means that he's one step closer to his yes. Right. So again, when he's going in his head, in his mind, all right, he's always the prize. All right. This does blend well, and it does work very well, again, for keeping the conversation intact, as well as not, depending on how you're using it and depending on who you are. All right. It's going to help to move your prospect as well. Okay. If you detach ourselves from the outcome, what do we put our attachment on? Okay. So 100% attachment to the process. All right. More specifically, getting the truth of the transformation that they want, the problem they're facing that's keeping them from getting it, and if they truly are committed to aligning their actions with their words. All right. Being a leader and staking a stand for them, commitment versus closing. All right. If you nailed the process, let the losses go. Don't forget, enjoy the process. All right. Does anyone understand what I'm saying here? All right. So when we detach ourselves from making the sale, which is always best, by the way, I always recommend it. I never go in, if you want to put pressure on yourself, go in thinking about making a sale. All right. I see it with sales reps all the time, with technicians, they put it in their head and they immediately kind of put blinders on, is that they go in with the intent to make a sale. That shouldn't be your intention. Okay. That's the outcome, all right, of doing your job right in the first place, right? The outcome should not be your intent. The process should be your intent. All right. So again, when we remove some of the garbage that's in our heads of like needing to make a sale, and especially if you're concerned about money, commissions, all those kind of things, once we take those off the table, all right, it's impossible to fail. Right. And again, your prospect's is going to take that energy in, and it's much easier to move someone to an emotional state because your emotional state is steady. Okay. You're not, you can't hide if your intent is to make a sale. All right. Has anyone encountered a really dishonest person that could just be, seen from a mile away without him ever saying a word? Probably, right?
Yeah, several.
Yeah, you can just tell by the way that they present themselves, their body language and everything, right? So again, we all know sleazy sales reps too, right? Fast talking, kind of, pushy, stuff like that. That's not those guys aren't the top sellers. Those aren't the guys that like really close deals. Okay. And again, it comes back down into intention. So for everybody on the call, the other side of this, for guys that have struggled with sales or been on the technical side and done a lot of pitching, this is a way for you to really get back to focusing on your process, right? So it allows your brain to take some ease, especially with technical salespeople. All right, but we got to change our intent of not making a close or a sale, but actually resolving the problem, finding out the real reasons they need this solved. Okay.
Awesome. I am Jay, can you mute Zach?
Yeah.
I think he's on the sales call now or something.
Yeah,
Trying
there
to
you
make
go.
a deal.
Good for him.
Nice.
They're closing deals on the call. That's what I want to hear. All right. The expert frame. Okay. So I would recommend for everybody on this call that we use this frame at least a few times. And it really does depend on your prospect. Again, we'll get into personalities and how to adjust. But an expert frame is in general probably the most universal frame that we want to hold. All right. Also referred to as doctor frame. You're the expert in this context. Therefore, you have a proven process for determining exactly what it is, shortest path to get to the prospect's desired outcomes, and you will not prescribe anything until the process is completed. Okay, so doctors can do no harm, right? Right, or should do no harm, right? But they're also a trusted expert, right? And a lot of times we put all our trust in think about that frame when you're talking to your prospect. Okay. Be very curious of their problems, very curious of, what's driving their decision, just like a doctor would, right? A doctor, you don't walk into a doctor's, well, most good doctors, all right, and just be like, hey, my shin's hurting, I need pills, right? And the doctor just gives you a prescription. That's not, he's going to ask a couple more questions. He's going to do some tests. He's going to take his time to figure out what exactly is going on, right? So you want to use your doctor frame, and again, you are the expert. You're the trusted source. Assume that. Okay. A lot of times we give up this frame, all right, when we're thinking about making a sale. All right. Then we move into, we're not asking our questions. We're just trying to get to the pitch. We're trying to, get them to sign on the dotted line. That is a surefire way to blow sales left and right. Okay. So again, this is an easy frame for most of us to go into. The caveat to this is you can't make it about your product or your service. Okay. You're a doctor there. You need to first figure out what the symptoms are. All right. And then what the appropriate action is. Right. Not what you think will work, or not what what your service offered. Will it actually fit their needs? Okay. So how do we hold the expert frame throughout the call? We have clear leadership at the beginning, framing the call. We do not give any coaching prior to fully diagnosing their situation. Instead, we let the prospect sit in the weight of their pain. Okay. So call or, meeting. All right. You want to, again, understand. And I use coaching for a particular reason, is that a lot of us try to convince our clients that they should go with this or that. All right. For these reasons. Okay. They start to logically justify why the client should choose them. Right. This is a terrible way to do sales. Whereas we need to remove the coaching, at least at the beginning. All right. It's okay to do this towards the end, once you understand what the actual situation is. All right. And we want to hold that off until we have it in our sales process. And again, if you can keep your sales pitch to about 15% of the entire interaction, you're going to find your sales go up dramatically. Okay. And we'll talk about the process that you guys can use. So don't worry if you're a little bit confused about that. But we do not want to wield judgment on our prospects for any reason. We don't want to let our ego get in the way of our process, cadence, and tonality. All right. So we're going to start talking about this a little bit, but silence and pausing, probably one of the most powerful sales tools that you can have in your arsenal is how to move someone, again, sit in your silence. So giving out prices, for example, when you give a price to a client, all right, shut your mouth. Just watch what happens. So you give the prospect the quote or the price. Too many times we start to justify it right away. That's not the way to move them. We want to close our mouth, let it sink in, all right? Be comfortable in the uncomfortable, position, because that's going to open them up to, again, moving them towards a transition or, a dealing with the objection. Make sense?
Okay. Yep.
Limited interruptions. All right. Downward equal tonality, not upward. Short pointed questions. Okay. So again, when we're asking, like if we're holding our expert frame, these aren't long, big questions. They're more to the point. Okay. So a lot of you guys will easily slide into this frame. But again, thinking about the prospect, thinking about finding out why they're doing what they're doing, what their fears are, their concerns are, all of those things are absolutely critical, and that you're holding that frame. You're going in and diagnosing it, just like a doctor would. Okay. So again, this is how we hold that expert frame. Okay. The two emotions we must transfer to our prospect. All right. What are the two emotions? Clarity and certainty. Okay. So if we think about every sales opportunity that we have, that the outcome for our prospect should be absolute clarity and certainty, right? How to solve their problems. All right. You're going to find that your sales will go up dramatically, even if you blow other parts of it. All right. We want to think, does my prospect have clarity and certainty? All right. If you can transfer those emotions, very often that person's going to feel very connected with you, and you're going to hold a lot of trust and authority with them. Okay. Why are these important? Clarity lends to certainty. Certainty lends to decisive action in our prospect. Okay. So we want to get them to take action. We want to get them to move into their uncomfortable zone, see us as a trusted source or a guide or a lead, and allow us to take over, and we would make the close. Okay. How do we create these? Getting clear of the prospect's current situation, desired situation. Okay. This should always be step one. Always. All right. You don't skip this. Figuring out exactly, being clear, understanding exactly where that customer is. All right. Again, this is how you build a sales process. So surface level plus emotional, creating a buying pocket. So we were talking about this in our discovery calls, in our role plays. When we ask surface level questions, like, for example, why are you buying a metal roof? All right. Oh, it's because it lasts 50 years. Okay. If I don't drill down on that question to find out the real reason why, okay, I'm actually letting my prospect down, and I'm not really understanding the current situation. Okay. Because below that, no one just goes out and buys a roof because it lasts 50 years. That's not the real reason for them thinking about the roof. All right. The real reason underneath that is they're afraid of having to replace the roof later in retirement. They're afraid their kids are going to put them in retirement homes because they can't upkeep their house. They're afraid of X, Y, and Z. They've replaced the roof before, and they don't want to do it again. They had a bad contractor. All of these things can be, again, when we drill down and we realize where the pain is, all right, it's up to us to bring that out to the surface. Okay. And then create clarity around it. All right. So installing the emotional beliefs, pain, doubt, cost, desire. All right. This creates separation. Now, finally, we were presenting them with an offer pitch. So if we're looking at our sales process, a simplest one that we can do, right? Find the pain, find the emotions, all right? That's going to lead them to their desired situation. What do they see as being the solution to that problem? All right. Solution may be getting a new metal roof. All right. Why? Because they're afraid that their kids are going to put them in the retirement home. Okay. And then, using that doubt and fear. All right. So, what would happen? I call this consequence. What are the consequences of getting it wrong? Right? Well, they'd have to replace the roof in retirement, using the wrong company, again, you're going to lead them with those consequence questions. All right. And only then should we be transitioning into a solution or a pitch to their problem. Right. And again, if we did less time pitching, you're going to find your sales go up dramatically. Okay. As well as timing objections. Right. So if everyone's been following along, the way I see closers and salespeople is a salesperson stops at no, a closer starts at no. All right. That means that they have to be truly emotionally aware of themselves. All right. They have to be totally understand where the customer is so that they can move them past those objections. Okay. Objections are only fears, right? It's our job to, again, move through a client with objections. Now, for guys out there that just drill objection handles and stuff like that without really having a clue of how those emotionally like react with people, tend to have a very low closing rate with these. Okay. I don't recommend that we just learn objection handling. I recommend that we learn how to actually connect with our prospects so that when objections come up, all right, we're not running a script in our head, right? But we actually can relate to the customer and, we bonded with them at an emotional level that we can help them move past those. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, new, unique, different, superior, justify why their past attempts didn't work, provides quick results, has tangibility specifically, and collapses time, eliminates fear of success. We'll talk about that in next week. Okay. So how do we create clarity? Right? Clarity lends to certainty. Certainty lends to decisive action in our prospect. Still, fear, doubt, suspicion may get in the way. Okay. So when we're trying to create clarity, and how many times have you had this experience where in our minds we have it perfectly clear with our prospect? All right. We've explained our services to them and how it helps them. We explain, in our pitch how, we're the obvious best choice and the most trusted source. All right. Only to be stopped by a uncertainty objection. Okay. And a lot of times when we get stopped by that uncertainty objection, most salespeople stop right there. It's over, right? A good closer is going to move beyond that and see it for what it is and work through that objection with the prospect. Okay. And again, the idea that we need to be putting in our head is creating more clarity. Okay. So again, clarity leads to certainty. Certainty lends to decisive action in our prospect. Okay. Our certainty must overcome their doubts. My man, Eli Wide, for you guys that know him, he's probably the master of it. What's your name? Eli. You know him, right? What's that?
He's on the call?
No. These he was what's his face is oh my God.
Eli.
We've had him in a few times. Like I've had a few discussions with him, but he was Tony Robbins' top like salesperson he used to sell from stage. So he sold like hundreds of millions, but he's a like a motivational speaker, big time sales trainer. One of my mentors as well. So he's like, if you want to look up his stuff, he's pretty good.
So how you spell his name?
Eli.
Eli, okay.
Yeah. Wilde. Okay. Identity document, morning priming next week, honoring what you say to yourself, calendars and projections, testimonials, wins daily, personal clients, team, weighing their other alternatives, have faith in your ability to make it right, get into the flow state on your calls. Okay. So now, how many people here have heard of flow state? I don't know if Siavash is on here. I don't know if he's on here anymore, but
present moment.
Yeah. So flow state is, again, where we are exactly what we talked about to begin with. A lot of times, if you're holding anxiety or you have negative charges, it's impossible to be in a flow state, right? So if we're feeling depressed, if we're feeling anxious, if we're feeling frustrated, what that happens is basically we're either living in the future, right, where nothing new or creative can happen, or we're living in the past where, we're dwelling on things that have already happened. The optimal state or flow state is present. Okay. So think about all the times in your life that you can remember really like great memories, getting married, having kids, all these things. All right. Think about why you can remember those and not others. It's because you were present. Okay. So if you want to be total high performer, high performers are able to find themselves being present more often than, in those other states. And that's why they're able to perform. Right. So again, have you guys had the experience where like, you just sit down at your desk and all of a sudden you can bang out like more work than you've ever, than you would normally do in 8 hours in an hour. Right. Oftentimes it's because we found ourselves in a present state. Okay. So as salespeople or sales professionals, again, this is where you have to work on pulling yourself back. And that's that tool that I shared last week, with, getting your head in the right place and finding yourself present. If you're going in and you're not able to fully focus on your prospect and you're distracted somewhere else, I mean, you may as well throw that sale down the drain because they're going to pick up on it. Okay. If you get it, it's probably a lay down sale. But for closers, all right, true closers, they make it about their prospect. They're going in and their only focus is lasered on their prospect, on what their needs are, what they need to do. Okay. And these things can be engineered. Again, when we get back to our conversation last week, flow state can be engineered. We should all, everybody on this call, whether it's you're doing sales or not, we should all be aiming to be in flow state as more often as not, because in my opinion, that's where you're actually alive. The rest of the time when you're in anxiety or you're in depression or any of those other states, that's actually just survival. Okay. And people can live in those anxiety and depression states indefinitely, right? They're not actually alive. They're just here. Right. So flow state is, again, that's my definition of it, right? So getting into flow gives you the feeling of poise, all right? Poise is a calm sense of certainty under pressure, right? Think of LeBron James in the NBA finals, right? Athletes are famous for it. Like they go to another realm and you can see it in them, right? They're so focused on the task at hand and what they have to do, all right? And they've trained themselves to be in that state. Okay. So do high performers, top sales reps. Like, again, this is serious business, right? So how to get into flow? Place all your attention and energy into your prospect and their words. Meditation, okay, takes the pressure off of you. Get out of your head and trust yourself, that you'll do the right thing spontaneously in the moment. All right. If you're in your head, you're dead. Okay. So when you're thinking about, and one of the hardest things to teach to new sales reps is once you've laid down these processes and built all these frames with them, what do you think they go into the sales calls thinking? They're thinking more about that than they are about their prospect, right? Same with it, guys that are using scripts. All right. Scripts are a guide. All right. I don't recommend that you're meant to practice them and get into that, but you should never be reading from a script with a prospect or, reverting to words like word for word. All right. Only very junior sales reps do that. And the prospect knows. All right. The energy is not there. It's not equal. Okay. So when we're starting out, yes. But what we want to be able to do is move through that framework, making sure that we're doing all the right things over and over and over again. Right.
Yeah.
Lose
Cut out all
yourself.
the distraction.
Right. So again, you're cutting off those distractions and you're not putting pressure on yourself. Like, again, guys that go in and like, oh, damn, I missed the last part of that script. Don't worry about it. Okay. The bottom line here is you need to connect with your prospect. And that's not always going to follow, the process that you have in mind. The process is there for you to be disciplined to one. Okay. Yes, you should be reviewing scripts. Like the best salespeople in the world still write scripts. They still have that framework and they go back to it and they hold themselves accountable to how they move through that. Okay. Why do you think that is? Because if you don't have a system or you don't have a process, it's very difficult to go back and see why something didn't work. All right. And then further to that, again, without a guide, your job is to lead your client. If your client's leading you into the weeds and wasting your time, all right, that's your fault. That's not the prospect's fault. That's your fault. Okay. That's why we have scripts, is that the script should be leading to an outcome. All right. But when we're on the call, we need to move all that out. If we screw up, if something doesn't go our way, let it go, man. Just, it's a part of the process, right? We got to let those things slide. Okay, so what's next? We want to ask yourself, which frames am I holding on my calls and which have I not? All right, so expert, prize, moral authority. Can any of you right now say which frame that you've actually held? Has anybody got a good grip on which frame that they hold in their sales calls? Or an example? No? Okay. So for me, and I'll just share my own experience. I'm always trying to create moral authority. Okay. And when I go into any call, my objective is always the same, is to help the prospect move away from pain, move towards, success. Okay. Now I put that frame on, but it doesn't mean I don't switch or I don't change. Depending on the person that you're doing business with, all right. Again, I may have to make those adjustments. All right. We're going to get into more about how you identify personalities, which is really, really important for anybody. Again, some people naturally don't sell well. I don't sell well to like type A personalities. Okay. I don't sell so well to type C either. Okay. Even though I use like a moral authority, type C is generally the ones that blend best to that. So they're very compliant. All right. Moral authority works fairly well with them. But I mean, again, most of you guys will find that your success is found in expert, right? Or doctor frame. It's the most natural to you. Okay. But don't be afraid to try some of these things on. So I've been creating on my calls: separation, buying pocket, emotional beliefs, offer, pitch, the bridge logically and emotionally. Okay. So when I'm saying pitch the bridge, all right. What I mean by that is, moving them from a logical state to an emotional state. That is the bridge. Okay. So when you can tie somebody's, what they've told you, what they shared with you, the easiest way to move them logically to emotionally, all right, is repeat back what they said, all right, creating clarity, all right, creating certainty that you understand, all right, and then moving them to the solution to the problem. Okay. That's what I mean by pitch your bridge. Okay. How you move someone logically, standoffish, lower their guard, get them to, recognize that the solution you're offering will work for them. All right. And moving them into their uncomfortable zone. All right. Which they're going to be in naturally anyways. All right. It's your job to lead them through that. Okay. Am I working on building certainty daily? All right. Am I constantly in my head on my calls, or am I totally focused on the prospect? Okay. I want you guys to ask yourselves that question before each call or before each appointment. All right. Ask yourself, right? Am I in my head, right? Or am I distracted, or am I totally focused on this prospect? Okay. When you start to go in with the intent of focusing on solving a problem, your sales game will change immediately. Okay. If you go in with the intent of just closing a sale, all right, you'll find that you continuously hit the blocks. I have yet to see anyone do it very successfully and get above a 40% closing ratio. Okay. The guys that are in the 70s and 80s and have really mastered it, all right, they hit flow state just like that. They've worked their whole emotional logical framework out, and it's always going in with the intent of solving a problem. It's never anything else. Okay. And there's tons of interviews. There's tons of information out there about it. It all comes back to that, right? If you're in your flow, you're set on solving a problem for someone. All right. You're listening. All right. You're really, again, in your zone, you're going to close and you're going to be a high performer, right? Despite not having any of the other skills. All right. So, next keys to high performance. We talked about it this last week: projections versus goals. All right. Applying projections rather than goals. I'm not a fan of sales goals. I don't like them. I don't use them. They're not valuable to me. Okay. The reason why is that they're not black and white enough. All right. So last week we talked about making a projection. That is the minimal amount of closing that you have to make. Okay. I set the bar for my team right there because I want everyone to exceed it. Okay. So when you set a projection, let's say it's 200,000, the real goal is 300 or 400,000, but you're setting the bar at, this is the minimum that I'm going to get. Okay. Winning routines and discipline. So we talked about daily rituals. I want to remind everybody about how you can create your own daily ritual. All right. Now, this doesn't have to be something that takes an hour, 2 hours to get you into the flow state. Maybe at first, but we should always be looking at our routine and our daily rituals and how it helps us to become a higher performer. Right. So again, I shared with you guys the tool that I use to, discharge negative emotions and to make myself, come back to neutral. All right. It's effective meditation, breath work, all those things work. Okay. Everything works, but it's got to be specific to you. It's what you are going to commit, what makes you feel good, right? Find those things, right? You can't let the distractions of business and life and family and all those things get in your head, all right? Because it's trash. It's not going to help you solve your problems. Okay? It's not serving you. So especially as a sales rep, we want to be able to remove all of that. And your daily rituals is what's going to allow you to do it consistently day in and day out. Okay. And it's also going to prevent sales ruts. So again, I'm going to come back to process. All right. When we have a sales process, all right. And that does include a script, but we have a sales process that we're really sure of. All right. And we have our daily rituals. We can come back to getting ourselves out of sales ruts. We can identify clearly what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. All right. A lot of times it's just subtle changes in our mannerisms. It's subtle changes in our tonality, right? So think about being really tired, really burnt out, and trying to fake it to a prospect. Do they pick up on it? Of course they do. All right. You have to get back to a state where the prospect is expecting, right? You have to be trusted. So when we go through all of these balances and checks, your daily ritual will keep you on track, right? Most of the time, if we make adjustments to those daily rituals, we get out of the rut. Most of the time. Okay. Identifying and breaking sales ruts and resetting to the baseline. Okay. So one more time, I'll bring up the tool from last week. I hope everybody got it. It's in the school as well. But there's merit to what I was doing. So when you have negative emotions, negative thoughts, even positive emotions. So when you're really excited and you're on a roll in sales, you still need to discharge that. Okay. So being really excited about all the sales you made, and again, it's like the gambler that counts their money. That's almost a guaranteed way to come in at the wrong energy level. So we need to be discharging those things. And then what you're going to find if you use that tool is that you're going to find a pattern to what's going on, right? So getting yourself to a neutral state, think about it that way. That's right there in the middle. All right. Being overexcited or being, the opposite, being frustrated, all those things. Again, these are going to affect your sales greatly. This is going to affect your life, your performance, and it's going to affect everything, that's going on with you, right? So find those ways. If you're using it, using a tool or whatever. But if you're wise, you're going to track that. Okay. I can't tell you how many times that by tracking what emotions I'm discharging and what consistent frustration or anger that I'm feeling, that I can trace it back to a person or a situation. All right, cool. You know what I'm going to do? So it doesn't affect me in other places. I'm going to remove it. All right. I'm going to get rid of it. I'm not going to have that so that it's taking away from my performance. Okay. Very, very good example of this is, again, I get a lot of ideas. Eric, I shared your example. So Eric talked to me about a particular business opportunity and I got way overexcited about it. Right. So in order for me, and it was, right. So it was a newer concept and a different way to think about something. And I love that stuff. I was growing and I got way into it, right. I overcommitted and hyper focused. Right. And the next day I had to discharge that, right. Because that's going to affect my performance. That's going to affect the way that I show up for my clients. All right. And again, how many times are we allowing that to happen? Now I'll look for that as a pattern. Right. And I'm not going to let that, become a problem again. So next time I can actually reference back to it. Right. So it's a systematic way of finding yourself in that flow state. If you don't know how to get yourself into it, and equally as important, if somebody can bump you out of it very easily, right, or a situation can, right, that means you still have a lot of work to do. Okay. This should be something that you can do on demand. And again, business and sales aside, okay, if you guys want the recipe to a better life, period, full stop, all right, you want to show up and be present for your wife, your family, for everything else, your community, all right, work on these skills. I promise you, there is like we're in an abundant world full of opportunities. We're surrounded by them. Okay. The difference between the people that get them and the people that don't is what's between their ears. Okay. And how we treat that brain. Again, trust me on this stuff, right? Practice it. Even if you're taking tiny steps every single day, but think about it, right? Again, how do I get back to the state where I feel present and alive? All right. Doesn't have to be excited, doesn't have to be, down. It needs to be right there, bang in the middle. Okay. Master that skill and the rest will, like the saying says, it'll flow. Okay. It'll all come to you. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So that was a hell of a rant. Thanks for sticking with me and through that one. Takeaways. Can anybody share a takeaway with me from this presentation?
Yeah, the different flow, right?
Mhm.
Different state. When you do your initial call, you might be into a moral authority states versus, when you're presenting
Mhm.
that presentation as an expert frame. So
Right.
that's great.
Okay. So on that note, we're going to learn about some other frames, but really what we want to do is build our sales tool belt. Okay. Not all of these things will suit you specifically, and I can't stress this enough. Don't try and wear someone else's underwear. Okay. What works for me might not work for you. Okay. Don't force it on. There's other frames that you can put yourself to, and we're going to talk about lots of different ones, but find the tools that work best for you. Okay. Be willing to take chances and take risks and feel uncomfortable in the process. Because again, none of us are born natural salespeople. None of us are. All right.
Yeah,
So,
true.
I mean, one of the takeaways here is that even if you are not great at it, take that trash out of your head. All right. Commit to the process. Commit to, improving the lives of your prospects. Commit to solving a problem and really owning it. All right. And again, you'll find yourself easily moving through these things.
I gotta speak up there. My takeaway from it is just recognizing these things that you're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Hmm.
And noticing and putting situations to play. It's like, shit, that's me, right? So recognizing them to move forward is a big takeaway from it.
Absolutely. So, can I tell you a little secret? I'll share it with you all. Okay. A lot of times, these things that we're learning here, they apply to your relationships, right? You want your kids to listen a little better, learn this stuff, right? I do. I'm a big fan of a thing called connected parenting. I took that program to really connect with my kids, and it's basically verbatim. It's sales and marketing. If you pick up any parenting book, all right, you're going to find probably the best sales and marketing information that you'll ever read in your life. Okay. So when you learn these skills, because it's a skill, okay, we're able to, have better relationships with the people around us. We're able to connect with people, and again, practice this. You don't need to be selling somebody something to practice these things. All right. Go out and be curious about your wife. Use questioning. Try to create these bonds with your wife, your kids, and you will see an immediate difference in how things go in your home. All right. So don't think that you have to be on a sales call to practice this stuff, right? You don't, right? You want to, de-escalate a situation with your staff. Again, start off being curious. Go through this process and this framework, all right, with staff, and you're going to find again a total different outcome than you were expecting, right? I use it for, again, I use it for the right purposes, but I use it with my family. I use it with my kids. I use it with, other relationships. I use it with tough conversations. It really comes down to a basic need as a person and a human being, right? We all want to be heard and seen. We all want to feel relevant, right? We all have pain. We all have, we're all suffering together. Okay. So when somebody takes an interest in helping you solve that, all right, we don't have very many people around us like that, right? We maybe have 3 in our lives that are truly like they give a shit about you, right? Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions that I can answer? Any ideas or anything you want to share?
I had one question, Jay, if I may.
Sure.
I missed last week. I really want to make sure I get to see that one. Where can I get that?
Yeah, it's in school. This one will be posted too. So I'm posting it on the main school page.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah, so if you go in here, it's right here.
Okay.
Okay. And again, if you wanted, like with these, you're meant to come to those role plays. So I'll just remind everybody the role plays are Tuesday, Wednesdays. They're just a half hour. They're pretty easy to do. And again, guys, no one's above a role play. All right. No one's above doing those things. So like any of your salespeople balking at you for it, like iron sharpens iron. The best salespeople in the world are constantly improving their skills. Okay. They're constantly, I go to role plays. I have a sales coach. Like no one's beyond it. You're never an expert enough. All right. If you become a permanent student of this skill, by the way, one of the number one skills in the world to possess, right? Nothing will pay you more consistently over the time of your life than learning this, right? So lots of value. Again, even if it feels uncomfortable, get outside of your comfort zone, come do your role plays, get your questions answered, and start to, really take on the identity of a salesperson, right? Or I should say a high performer, not a salesperson.
So I heard you correctly. Tuesday and Thursday, was it?
Yeah, so it's on the calendar.
In the
No,
calendar,
it's
yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's where it is.
Tuesday,
Okay,
Wednesday, yeah.
okay. Pardon me.
Yeah,
Okay.
just jump in the calendar for that.
Yeah, okay.
Are you dropping these calls there too, Jay, or like these calls?
No, we're adding calls. So we have 2 more calls that are getting added.
No, I
very
mean,
shortly.
yeah. Are you dropping the recording on the of the
Oh, yeah,
calls in
100%.
there?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
always. Yeah. So they're in the community page. I'll put it in there. Right. So if
Okay.
you go into school, all of our calls are posted there. Here.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean the practice call, the pitch
Yeah,
call.
so I opted not to do that because some people are a
Okay.
little embarrassed with their I don't want to record those things. Just I want
Okay.
people to feel it like it's a safe place and all that stuff. Like if
Okay.
we're
Okay.
recording those and sending them out, we'll see how that plays if it makes sense. In your breakout room though, when we
Mhm.
do breakout rooms, like if you're doing it with your team or whoever,
Uh-huh.
you can record those no problem.
Okay.
Okay,
Cool.
so that might be beneficial to you.
Mhm.
As long as we get permission to record, that's all. Because again, I've got some people that aren't, in sales at all, and they feel pretty uncomfortable with it. I'm just trying to get them to open up a bit. So
Mhm.
I'll say that it's okay in the breakout rooms if you got permission, but not on the main call.
Cool. Awesome.
Okay.
So yeah, I just want to add it. I dropped a link in the chat there. So for some of you that want to, start practicing being in the flow zone, meditation. So I have started this journey with Dr. Joe Dispenza. So he's being a great coach. So you can buy a meditation on their website for like 15-20 bucks.
I love that.
And there's great stuff there. He'll teach you actually how you can start meditating, right? So
Yeah, that's a hell of a skill we can all benefit from.
There's a lot of those free Joe Dispenza ones on YouTube too. I tune into them every morning. Half-hour ones, 10-minute ones. Real quick, they
Beautiful.
dial you in pretty good.
Yeah, it's
Very
all the ways you
nice.
find it. Right on, right on. And maybe we'll start running our hot yoga classes. No?
On the roof?
Yeah, hot yoga on the roof. That sounds like a liability in a lawsuit if I ever heard of it.
Oh,
I'm
geez.
gonna refrain from that. I think that would be a losing I think that'd be a losing deal. All right, gentlemen. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great day.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Bye-bye.